Okay. Excellent. I'm Emily.
And I'm Elise.
And I'm Evan. I am a guest today on
Yes.
this wonderful podcast.
Yeah, the Endurance Nutrition Show. So, Evan, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? What are you up to with your life?
And why do I deserve to be on the show?
Yes, tell us.
Yes, my name's Evan Ayers. I'm local here to Utah, where the Endurance Nutrition Show is based. I born and raised here, actually. Basically, I've been just doing endurance and fitness stuff for the last few years. So to give you the medium version, by all accounts, I shouldn't have ended up being any sort of athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Growing
Why
up,
is that?
well, I was super fat growing up.
Oh, nice.
And it wasn't like I was obese or anything, but I wasn't like fit. I didn't really get out. I wasn't interested in sports at all. All of my friends growing up who had just brothers and buddies, they liked roughhousing and like beating each other up, and I could hang, right? Like I could play with other kids and stuff and have a good time.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't a total weirdo, probably. But I just wasn't like super fit and active. I liked playing outside and all this stuff, but I was definitely overweight, and I just ate garbage mostly, and it was no one's fault but my own, because my mom actually, bless her heart, if she's gonna listen, she probably will, but but she tried to feed me healthy snacks, but I swear, like, once I had my own modality, like that I started doing my own thing, I remember specifically getting my first job and like taking my first paycheck and like going and buying junk food. And it was like, I just shouldn't have even ended up anywhere but like having a heart attack at age 35. So it was kind of interesting when I was a freshman at UVU, they force you at gunpoint to take an ethics class.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of your undergrad. And I think that's still mandatory even to this day. But
Ethics of anything in particular, or just?
so ethics and values, basically, it wasn't like Western philosophy or anything like that. It was just kind of the generic version. And we had a section on human-animal ethics, and it was explained to me in the most clear way for the first time that animal rights didn't necessarily mean, and the instructor made this joke. He was like, everyone hears animal rights and they're like, oh, PETA, they want animals to be able to vote and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, haha, like animal rights activists, what a joke. But he was just like, no, it's animals just don't want to die for your pleasure. Like they just want to be left alone. And for the first time ever, I was like, oh, holy crap. Like that makes so much sense to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, that spiraled into this super deep rabbit hole of like nutrition research, ethics research, and I went from pretty much just eating garbage my entire life, and a few things were happening at the same time. I actually met my now wife. Well, I met her in high school, but we started dating when I was freshman, sophomore at UVU, and her family was very holistic, kind of more that crowd. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah.
Not crazy, but definitely more like
Health-minded.
health-minded, Eastern medicine, like, hey, the body knows what it's doing, it can heal itself. And I was the guy who, if I even had like the hint of a headache, I was like, I need 3 Advil.
Yeah.
So it was a total flip-flop for me to start thinking about like, oh, my body is a machine and like I need to take care of it. So it was this whole long journey that's kind of culminated in a lot of different things, but I started just looking at what I was feeding myself. At my heaviest, I ended up getting to about 210 pounds. And
How tall are you?
I'm 6 foot or 6'1", probably 6'1" when I first wake up, 6 foot by the end of the day.
Yeah.
So
Gravity.
yeah, takes
Damn
its toll.
gravity.
Pulls you down all day long. But yeah, so I'm about 6 foot-ish, not incredibly tall. I just didn't feel good. I was super overweight, and I was working at the time. I was just working a desk job, so I was kind of not really doing much. And I didn't have like this fallback of fitness, because I feel like so many people that I know and so many friends that I have, they're like, oh yeah, I swam in high school, or I did cross country in high school, or football, basketball, whatever.
Those were my sports.
Yeah.
Swimming and running.
There you go. Hey, nice. So
I only ran, but
that's sweet.
I swam when I broke bones, but
Because water can't hurt you so
yeah,
bad.
I was like, if I can't run, at least I can swim.
Yeah, and I was, this is embarrassing, but I was the kid who cheated on how long I'd swum for my swam, right?
Swam.
Yeah,
How long I'd swam.
Yeah, swam. I was the kid that cheated on my swimming merit badge, because you're supposed to get a 1 mile swim in. And I was convinced I was going to die. So I was like, I need to lie my way out of this. So
We won't tell.
Okay,
You're
good.
Secret safe on this podcast.
To the public, yes.
Yes.
I got the merit badge. Sorry, all of Boy Scouts of America, and I'm trying to think. It was the Orem Sarah Pool. Yeah, sorry. My apologies.
Oh gosh.
But
So funny.
but yeah, I didn't have any sort of fallback of something I could look back fondly on and be like, you know what, I had like this level of athleticism at one time in my life. It just wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't there. I played football for one season to try to fit in, and didn't go well. I think I played in 2 games before the coach was like, no, this isn't happening.
Yeah.
So a lot of sideline time. But anyway, pity party aside, I took basically all of that and just like pushed it away. And I was like, I'm going to open my mind to other possibilities. So at the time I was dating my wife, my not yet then wife, and I was taking this ethics class, and I was just like, okay, there's got to be someone who knows about this stuff. And I just started reading a ton of books, which is something I'd always enjoyed doing. So it's hard. I can't remember, because this was several years ago now. I can't remember what book I started with, but I know the book that really turned the tides for me, and that was a book called How Not to Die by Dr. Michael Greger. And that was
That is a great title.
right, very
I
catchy.
haven't read it, but I want to.
You guys should check it out.
If you want to learn how not to die.
It's the real deal. And
Yeah.
just to give, for those unaware, just to give people like a very brief synopsis, he basically hammers out the top 10 killers in the United States, which are almost all completely lifestyle diseases. So heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, stroke, like all this stuff. Stuff that we do to ourselves. And he basically just systematically shows like, okay, what's causing this is the things we eat and how we take care of ourselves. And it was just so like in plain words and so science backed. Like he just had so many studies backing up all this stuff. And I don't know, something clicked. It was like the combination of reading that book and like meeting my in-laws and kind of being shown this different way of thinking, that my mind just opened up, and I was like,
Just
okay.
like this perfect storm of
Yeah.
mind opening.
Exactly. Like the fates
experiences.
aligned.
Yeah.
And it's funny because the one experience that I look back on now and was just very pivotal, like kind of symbolic of everything that I've been talking about, was I was at my in-laws' house, who not yet then in-laws' house, and my wife, not yet then wife, girlfriend at the time, sorry, I keep making that
It's all
distinction,
good.
but she ate like a cookie or a treat or something, because we'd gone out to get lunch. We came back and we were eating, and she ate something junky. And like not 5 minutes later, she was like, oh, I don't feel so great. I shouldn't have done that. Like I ate this junk cookie, whatever it was. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, when you eat something bad and then you feel bad. I was like, huh? I was like, I don't get it. And she just proceeded to explain this magical connection between what you eat and how you feel. And I just realized like, oh, I had just been operating like down here, like bare minimum, like getting through the day, and like she was up here, but eating crap made her feel like crap. So that was just, again, it wasn't like right then I was like, yeah, I'm gonna make this huge change, but it was symbolic of like finally coming to terms with, oh, you should start taking care of yourself. So
Had she ever commented on that before, like your eating habits?
not really. It was very, I mean, our dating was like very fun, and I don't think anyone looked at me and was like, oh, that guy's gonna die in his 40s.
Yeah.
Just because I am a little bit taller, and I think I carried it okay.
Yeah.
But that's interesting. I don't think she'd ever been overly concerned. But
the reason I ask is my husband ate really poorly when we were dating, and I just remember always being like, I studied nutritional biochemistry in college, so I'm like kind of obsessed with nutrition. And I just always remember being like, how do you eat like that? How do you not feel so how do you not
Nasty.
feel like garbage when that's what you're eating, basically? And nope. He was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I feel fine. Like, I can eat Oreos for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it's like not that big of a deal. And I was just like, I don't know how you function. But it's been interesting to see over the past couple of years as he's like changed his diet and become a little bit more intuitive about what he eats. It's like really interesting to see that now he's like, oh, I know what you mean, like when I eat.
yeah,
Junk.
exactly. It's like how one of my favorite phrases. It's like asking a fish what water is. Like if you just live in it and that's all you know, and you've like it's just your universe or your world, it's so hard to see anything else because it's like, oh yeah, I always feel like crap, therefore it's my new normal.
Yeah.
So it's like, why, how could I even conceive of anything different?
Yeah. I also think about, I don't know how much you've studied about like the gut-brain connection with like what you eat, but I also think that's part of it is like as you develop bacteria in your gut, that's like, do you know what I'm talking about? Like, okay.
Yeah, the
So
microbiome.
like, yeah, basically the microbiome it develops based on essentially what you feed it. And so it's kind of interesting. So like if you develop very healthy gut bacteria and those colonies, if you start eating junk, it's like, I think there's some sort of relationship there.
Yeah, 100%. In fact, and I apologize because this is like my MO and all my friends get sick of it, but I have a book for that too.
I love it, yeah.
There is another great book that I'm reading right now. It's called Fiber Fueled. And it's by one of the like most premier gut doctors around, but basically he does a really deep dive into like all the crazy scientific names of different like flora in your gut. But yeah, it's 100% real. And the one thing that he mentions that I was just like, oh, holy crap. He talks about like numbers to numbers, how many human cells we have versus like biome cells that we have. And we actually have more non-human cells in our body than we do human cells. And I was just like,
more bacteria cells than actual cells that make up your body. It's so crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah. I wrote my, I don't want to call it like I don't even know what it was, like my final paper of my undergrad on, it was very nerdy and sciencey on all the different like bacterias and I just remember just being like so blown away researching it, how it has such a huge impact on your mood and your overall health, just like the bacteria living in your body. So,
yeah, it's crazy. At some points you're like, okay, am I even at the steering wheel here? Like if there's so many other things that control, how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking. Yeah, it's crazy. And a couple other things he talks about is like, because people get keen on like, oh, probiotics and all this stuff, but there are bacteria that can only live in the human gut. Like they cannot be cultivated outside the human body. And I was like, what? 2020, like this is the future. Like we can do anything. We can 3D print homes and organs and stuff. And but yeah, it's because we can't do it. And once those die, they essentially go extinct. You can't like recultivate certain bacteria. And that's why a lot of children who are put on antibiotics very early in life, they will literally have gut problems till the day they die. Like
those antibiotics just wipe out those bacteria.
They just literally nuke everything. And it's super hard to start from ground zero.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's nuts. There's a super powerful connection there.
Yeah.
When did you, like, you were researching all this stuff about health and stuff, like, did you gradually start like getting into a healthy lifestyle, or was it like, okay, I'm doing this and
Cold turkey.
Cold
Yeah.
turkey. Yeah, that's a good question. So
Cold turkey, no more turkey.
no cold tofurkey.
There we go.
But it was, so there's been like seasons, right? There's been phases. So I actually, upon attending that class freshman year, I actually went vegetarian because I was like, okay, I don't want to support these things that I don't like, that don't morally align with me.
How many years ago was that?
That was 2015.
So 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, going on 6. So vegetarian was cold tofurkey. But I wasn't educated by any means. It was kind of just like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll just eat tofu because that's what you do. But after, so I was still like,
I think that's a common thing, actually.
Oh,
People, they like, there is a science to eating vegetarian and vegan, like, well. And I think sometimes people just jump into it without kind of understanding.
Yeah, totally. Especially, I mean, there are junk food vegans. I mean, you could drink Diet Coke, eat Pringles and Oreos all day if you wanted. Yeah, fun fact, Oreos are vegan.
Yeah.
But so that was kind of phase 1, and that was definitely like the more of a moral decision than like, okay, I'm going to change my life and become the best version of myself that I can be. But after that, and reading those books, I started to see like, oh, okay, there's more to this. And what's interesting is just how backwards our system is, because like, just think about anyone's childhood. Their entire growing up, their parents are like, hey, you need to eat more vegetables. Kids are like, heck no. And then you go vegan and everyone's like, are you going to die? Are you going to die of malnutrition and deficiencies? And it's like, wait, weren't you telling me to eat all this like my entire life? So it's just kind of funny. But I was just starting to realize like there are very few benefits to animal products. And any benefits that there are vastly outweighed by like everything else you could be eating. So one switch that I've made that helped me is like every time you eat is an opportunity to either benefit your health or destroy it. Like it's pretty cut and dry. Like there's not a ton of very like neutral foods. You're either helping yourself or you're not. So when I started to look at it like that, it's like, oh, well, I mean, every time I sit down to eat, I want the best chance to be healthy and live longer. So I kind of took off the horse blinders, so to speak, and like stopped looking at like, oh, these are just the 5 or 10 things that people can eat. And you start to just look at like how many edible plants there are. It's overwhelming, like thousands of edible plants. Even go to your grocery store. Like we shop mostly at Winco, which again, for those unaware, is kind of just like a cheaper budget. It's not like a fancy grocery store. You can get like just crazy random vegetables. Like we got like a 4-foot radish the other day and they just like had it.
Yeah. I also like Winco because you can buy bulk there.
Yes.
And if you're kind of interested in less plastic waste and things like that, you can just bring your own little baggies and like own little cloth bags and just load up without all the packaging.
Yeah, that's exactly what we do. In fact, these very oats in these items were bulk bought, and we get it like probably 5 pounds at a time. Like we eat a lot of oats. But yeah, once you start to look at like, okay, what the options are, it just opens up a whole different world. So to answer the question, like phase 1 was definitely that moral cutoff of like, okay, I'm not going to eat meat, but I didn't really understand the ramifications of like dairy and eggs and stuff like that. So that all came later. And then the book, How Not to Die, was kind of really the turning point of just saying like, okay, this isn't just like playing around. This is like your health and vitality and your fitness and all this stuff that's on the line, basically. And you kind of have to think long game, because most people like me and your husband can eat garbage for a while and feel pretty okay. But it's like, okay, what's that going to look like 10 years, 20 years, 30, 40 years down the road?
At that point, it's kind of irreversible in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you think about it, like you've literally been putting diesel in a gasoline engine for 20 years. How's it how's it going to look at the end?
Yeah.
So
the literal cells that make up your body
yeah,
are struggling.
yeah, and they're starving for the food that it is most designed to work with, and what makes it the most vital. And I think a lot of vegans or activists, they go like a little bit overboard with the like, oh, this is what we're designed to eat. And I align with some of that, but really humans are very opportunistic eaters. That's what we've had to be over the centuries to get by and to, get top of the food chain. Woo, human race. But we definitely have good, better, best in terms of what we can be eating. So looking at it in those terms, that's really when I made the switch. So it was kind of like hard cutoff, ambiguous, and then another hard cutoff. So there were kind of like a couple of distinct phases making the transition. But yeah.
Speaking of that transition, for example, I don't know if Elise has ever had this desire, but I've definitely thought and really tried hard to eat vegan. I mean, one, driven by animal rights. I'm like definitely an animal lover, but also environmentally, it's a lot better for the environment if you limit or abstain from meat consumption or any sort of animal products, really. So if somebody was like myself, wanting to transition, what would you tell them?
That's a really good question, and not to just give a shameless plug, but I actually made a YouTube video about that.
Perfect. We'll link it.
But basically, like going vegan without super high energy and high effort, because I think a lot of people do kind of see it as overwhelming, especially when we've been programmed and kind of spoon-fed, like, oh, you eat eggs in the morning, you have a ham sandwich for lunch, and then you come home and eat a T-bone steak. I don't know if people really do that, but
meat and potatoes.
Meat and potatoes, exactly.
Yeah.
But you take that away, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, what do I do? And you get kind of nervous. But I'd say like one thing is going to be mindset. Mindset's huge, and just making that shift from, oh, I can't eat this, or I don't eat this, to I won't, is just that word difference is super empowering, because it's basically putting the charge back on you. It's like, oh, I'm making this decision for me for a reason. And that, I found that helps a lot, especially in like family scenarios, because food is very emotional and food is very entwined in everything we do. I mean, think about like every date you've gone on, like probably 80% have involved food, maybe more.
My first date with my husband, he made chicken parmesan.
Nice.
And he kept calling the Brussels sprouts asparagus. And I was like,
oh, gosh.
I don't think we're eating asparagus. I was like, why do you keep talking about asparagus?
He was like definitely trying to plug, like, look, I'm fancy.
Yeah.
And I made you something really fancy.
It was just so funny. I think about that a lot. It's awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very emotive, and like there's a lot of like like culturally food can be very important. And I actually spoke with a friend about this who she's Hispanic. I had an interview with a friend, and she went vegan, and her mom went vegan, and so did her dad, and her brothers ended up going vegan as well. But it was crazy just how much they were up against in terms of like family pressure, because it was like, you go to grandma's house for food and she offers you like tamales or whatever, and you're like, oh, no thanks. And she's like, oh, you hate me. Like, this is personal. Like, this is how I'm telling you I love you, and you're literally spitting in my face. So they're like, I don't deny any of that for people. So I think like you have to be able to come back to your reason, and just being able to say like, no, like I do love you and I can show you in a million other ways, but like I'm making this choice for me. So to just be able to have something to fall back on, I mean, call it your why, right? Like your reason for doing stuff. And then I also think we're really lucky to live in a day and age that you can find a substitute for pretty much anything. If it's a flavor thing, if it's an aesthetic thing, I mean, if you want to go out and get Beyond Meat burgers, they taste amazing. I
had one for the first time last week, and I was like kind of shocked I was like, that looks like blood. I'm like, what is going on? I was like, that looks like ground beef. I'm like, this tastes like ground beef. This is kind of a trip.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's not like every single thing out there is going to be like super healthy for you. I mean, you can get vegan ice cream, and you can get, you can still have Oreos.
It's not going to be as good as like something from the ground.
Right.
Like
right.
Mother Nature's.
Yeah. So I find like amongst the myriad of reasons, I think if anyone has a reason to go vegan, like do it, like jump in, like try it, like buy some stuff, get a grocery list. There's a million different like vegan blogs now, starter kits, all this stuff. There's so many good resources, but having that reason to fall back on, putting the power back to yourself of like, okay, I'm making this decision. I'm not like, no one's putting a gun to my head. No one's forcing me to do this. I want to, is really big. And then just trying new stuff, like just being open to all the new options you'll have.
Yeah, I used to cook for people. I had like a little side business, and I would like make meals for clients. And there was this guy that I was cooking for probably like a month or maybe 2 months. And he was vegan. And so that was like my first eye-opening experience with how amazing and how many different types of foods there are and how creative you can get with vegetables. I'm like, I made mozzarella. I made a 3-cheese lasagna, a 3-cheese vegan lasagna. And I literally used I made 3 different types of cheeses.
That's epic.
I was like, this is amazing. I'm like, it tasted great. Honestly, personally, I actually preferred it to normal lasagna because sometimes normal lasagna leaves you feeling like, oh my gosh, what did I just eat?
I need to sleep for 24 hours.
Yeah, like I just feel awful. But you eat this like hearty vegetable-based lasagna, and it's just like, I feel amazing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And once... I think it's like, it's just turning the flywheel over that first time, right? And realizing, okay, I do have options and this does taste good. And like, eventually it's going to keep propelling itself and you're just going to keep feeling better. And for me, I ended up losing 50 pounds. So I was like, yeah, I'll keep doing this.
Yeah. I think the other thing that's hard is people forget that any sort of change is going to be hard because it's different. And eventually that change and those behaviors become normal and it becomes easier. So like, yeah, maybe you have to spend a little bit more time researching recipes and learning how to cook in a different way, but eventually that will become your norm. I guess I say that for myself because I'm like,
because you're on the way.
Yeah, I'm like, I need a little bit of motivation. I have like 20 chickens and I eat their eggs.
Oh, okay.
So I would have to get rid of them too. They're like my pets at this point. So I guess I could just...
You could have them fixed and just keep them as pets.
Yeah.
People do it.
20 pet chickens in the backyard.
Yep, there you go.
But I've been trying the past few years to really limit animal product consumption for environmental reasons. So that's why I got chickens this past year, is because I'm like, okay, I don't really want to contribute to these meat factories and these animal factories. But like, I still want to eat eggs, and so I got chickens. Right. And 2 chickens somehow turned into 20.
Yeah, that's crazy. Did they produce? Like,
no,
you just kept buying chickens?
I made a friend in Genola who raises chickens, and I just kept getting more chickens from her. So
you would regularly get a text, be like, "Hey, do you want another chicken?"
Well,
and
it was me texting her like, "Hey, so do you have any more chickens?" There's something called chicken math. It's a real thing. You can Google it. It's basically
like bike math.
Yeah, like bike math.
N +1 for chickens.
Exactly.
Okay. That's all right. Cool. Now I know.
So, anyways, I don't know why I brought that up, but should we talk about this food?
Yeah, let's like talk about just all about food basically, and like what you eat as a vegan. So we can start by we always have our guests recommend a treat or bring a treat or whatever. So
anyone who says vegans can't eat good,
they're
about
wrong.
to prove you wrong.
Okay, what are introduce all of these?
Yeah. So we've got some brownie bites. So this is basically just a recipe. There are a million different renditions or versions of it, but basically like vegan whole food plant-based brownies. Like if you Google that, you'll come up with a million different things, but
And
they're
honestly,
super easy.
I would rather eat one of these than a brownie.
Right, because you don't feel like garbage after.
I'm gonna eat
Dive
one.
in.
Take it.
So basically, it's a food processor, which is going to be quintessential for, I think, for most cooking, but also definitely for vegan cooking. But yeah, you've basically got dates. I used pecans instead of walnuts, and because that's what the recipe called for. And you also throw in some peanut butter and some cocoa powder, and boom, you're ready to roll.
As you say all these ingredients, it's like
You can taste
like-
them.
You get the hint of the
it's like
yeah.
ooh, peanut butter,
The
dates.
Yeah.
The date. How do you say that?
But yeah, they're super easy. They're super sweet. I make them for my daughter all the time because she has a sweet tooth, like all toddlers. She's 2.
But honestly, as like a small kid with a sweet tooth, like
yeah, no, she
as
pounds
a
them.
27-year-old with sweet tooth.
Yeah, she loves them. So I'll just say, Alice, do you want to make cookies? And she'll be like, yeah. And I mean, we do it different a lot of times. Like sometimes we'll do like oats and stuff or almond flour, and we'll mix it up and keep it interesting. But yeah, she'll pound these all day long. Which brings me to the second one that I couldn't keep my wife and daughter away from. There were many, many more as of yesterday, but
It's okay.
these are kind of your classic like protein power balls. So these are oats, dark chocolate chips. They've got shredded coconut. The binder in this one is actually molasses, so that's why it's kind of darker, richer. I like it a lot more than, so a lot of non-vegans would use like honey. We use agave or maple syrup, but I really like kind of the darkness of molasses. And last but not least, these are like power muffins. The recipe is constantly changing. So my mom,
These are good.
yeah, they're mega, right? I actually had my mom send me the recipe because I was like, hey, what did you put in this one? And
Mom's coming in clutch.
she
Wait,
always does.
What's your mom's name?
Susan.
Thanks, Susan.
She's getting all sorts of shout outs. So this one was a cup of mashed bananas. She threw some peanut butter, flaxseed, vanilla, almond milk, almond flour, baking powder, cinnamon, salt. And on this one, actually, she halved the banana and did half banana, half avocado. So kind of get some good fat in there. Make it happen. So
That's awesome. I like that.
Okay, gotta try this.
You said that your mom made them.
Do you want to
Has
split
your
this in
mom
half
kind
with
of
me?
Yeah. Has your mom kind of embraced your vegan lifestyle?
yeah, she actually, I had her read How Not to Die and many books following. My mom really likes audiobooks as well. My mom's funny. She like has to be doing stuff. Like she has a really hard time relaxing. So she'll just like knock out a book in a couple of days because she's always like cleaning the house or making food or like my sister's basement just flooded. So she's like, I'll do all your guys' laundry. So she like spent all day doing laundry. Yeah, she's go. And she is an avid cyclist too. So, so she listened
Susan
to
the cyclist.
Yeah, exactly. So she listened to How Not to Die, and we just had a really good conversation about it. And she was just like, this makes so much sense. She's like, why wouldn't you want to live as long as possible? And she actually jumped in, and so she's now actually plant-based as well. So not necessarily for ethical reasons, more for like personal health and wellness and longevity and all that stuff.
When you say plant-based, do you mean like fully vegan, doesn't eat any animal products? Nice. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
but she doesn't like identify as like vegan, which is the more like ethical denomination.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she's been all in, and she just makes like all these crazy awesome stuff. Like for Christmas, she did like enchilada casserole with like this crazy like cilantro cashew like cheese sauce on it, and so she goes crazy with all this stuff, and she knocks it out of the park.
What about like what was the protein? I guess the cheeses, the cashew cheese, I imagine has protein, but like, was there like
What's like the macro breakdown?
no, like
I
The
wanna know that.
substitute?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So too.
In that one, I'm trying to think. In that one, she actually used like a vegan chicken, like that I think they're just like they come frozen. Gardein makes like vegan chicken,
Nice.
but a lot of the time she'll do lentils, and like season them like you would any given meat, and throw some lentils in there, which are lentils are magic. They're amazing. They are full of protein and like every nutrient you can imagine.
I love lentils.
They're
And
so good.
folate.
Yes.
They give you your daily folate amount.
And they're super high in iron as well, which is sometimes a concern for people, especially like who are anemic. But yeah, she'll throw lentils in there. It's funny that you bring up the protein, because it's like that's the big question on everyone's mind. It's like, where do you get your protein, right? So fun little factoid: 97% of Americans fulfill their daily protein requirement. 3% get their recommended fiber. And the only place you get fiber is from plants.
Yeah.
And most plants are going to have protein. So all of the essential amino acids are readily available in the plant kingdom. And a lot of it's funny, in days gone by, like when I took nutrition classes as a freshman at UVU, they were kind of still of the mindset that like, okay, but you have to be really particular about your pairs. Because we had like a one-day slideshow about like, oh, and if you want to be vegetarian, you should eat this stuff.
Like
and
peanut
the rest
butter and wheat and beans and brown rice.
Exactly. And what was the other one? It was like tomatoes and wheat too, like pasta and sauce, right? But it's, as science has progressed and shockingly as humanity has survived for centuries with non-predominantly, animal product based diets, we've come to realize like your body is very smart and does a good job of like balancing out the different non-essential amino acids like in your gut as you're digesting throughout the day. So I've never had an issue of protein deficiency. You don't have to sit down and eat a block of tofu every day. Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
And there are, if you're really concerned about it, like the whole pairing thing, which you shouldn't be, because it's not of any consequence. Like, as long as you're eating a variety, you're fine. But yeah, like soybeans, and quinoa are two plants that actually have a complete amino acid profile. And it was funny because I actually, I remember asking my nutrition teacher, I was like, well, do you have to pair? Are there any foods that like are a complete protein that aren't meat? And she's like, no. I was like, aren't you a nutrition teacher? Like, shouldn't you know this stuff? But I think it's just like, if she's got an education that was, 5 years prior, and by the time it's getting to us, like, I don't think a lot of schools are teaching like the cutting edge of nutrition science.
No, they're not. In my degree, I can guarantee that was my whole degree was nutritional biochemistry, and I can guarantee a lot of it was very outdated.
Yeah.
Like I remember one of my professors was quoting from scripture saying that being vegan was evil, was of the devil, and I was just like, what in the world? What is this?
This doesn't sound right. It's funny. My wife sent me a scripture the other day. Shoot, I'll have to find it. But it was funny because we joke now, we're vegan and most of our families aren't. But she sent me, no, I'm not going to be able to find it. But it's basically a scripture that was like, oh, let the fruits of the earth be your meat. Like basically saying like, oh, you don't have to eat animals. Anyway.
Do you know Ezekiel bread?
Yeah, that stuff's the best.
I love Ezekiel bread. That's like one of my favorite foods.
Yeah. Straight up biblical bread.
Yeah, literally it's Ezekiel
4:9.
4:9, yeah. It's like take barley and wheat and all these other grains and like make a complete protein.
Yep, 100%. No, it's the best.
I love that stuff. I think it's interesting that we bring up the protein thing because that's, I think that's something that a lot of people think about and are concerned about.
Yeah, we're programmed to.
Am I going to get enough protein?
Yeah, it's crazy because, the U.S. has done a really good job of marketing what it feels is best for you. And when you kind of see behind the curtain, it's nothing other than like monetary motivation, because you look at all of these industries and they're almost completely government subsidized. So it makes a lot of sense that, like, okay, if the government is paying for milk to be produced, overages by thousands of gallons that would otherwise be thrown away, that they are going to find any way to get that into another product and tell us that we need to eat it. So it's there's a whole, like, you can get into the conspiracy of it all, but really what I always come back to is just like, if you just eat plants, it's okay. Like, you don't have to be, and that's what I tell people a lot, especially friends, because they see me, I'm kind of sold out on this lifestyle. Like, I'm a pretty big advocate for it. And they're like, oh, I don't want to turn into this crazy vegan. It's like, you don't have to. Like, you can just like take care of yourself the best way.
You're probably
possible.
passionate about it because you've seen like the polar, you've seen both ends of the spectrum, and you're like, all right, I've experienced both, and I can tell you this is
clearly better. Like, and that is kind of potentially a good segue into how I got into like the athletics and fitness side of all this. But like, again, like I said, like I'm not naturally talented at anything, so I didn't have any sort of like fitness fallback or like fondly remember back in the day, like I used to be super fit and active. But I just, as I was kind of on this journey of like changing what I ate, I was like, okay, I want to start to kick this into high gear in terms of being able to lose weight and just feel better. So I remember kind of the first run I ever did. And I'd been riding bikes at this point, but mostly for leisure and mostly from getting A to B. I got a bike because my dad had a bunch of really nice bikes, and I was like, well, that sounds fun. So I actually got a bike more or less as just a way to get around and to ride to and from my girlfriend's house, now wife's house, when we were dating, because I was so poor, I didn't like spending money on gas. So I basically I was riding a bike just for kicks. It wasn't like, I wasn't trying to lose weight. I wasn't probably even breaking a sweat by the time I got to her house. It took me like 15 minutes. But when the tides turned and I decided, okay, I'm going to make this investment in myself. Let's try to lose some weight, try to feel better, get fitter. I did it's probably 1.5 miles around my neighborhood, and I was like, thought I was going to die again. I was still super overweight. I'd probably only lost like maybe 5, 6, 7 pounds from switching up what I was eating. So I went on this first run, and it was terrible, and I was miserable, and then I was like, I want to do that again. So
what year was that?
That was, that was the year after we went, so 2017. Okay. So Brighton and I got married in 2016, and that would have been, early 2017. So kind of like, I feel like part of it is, and maybe every married man goes through it. Well, maybe not. I think a lot of guys get married and they're like, oh, finally I can let go. Yeah. And gain a bunch of weight. But I was kind of like, oh, well, because my wife, she's super hot, babe. But
what's her name?
Brighton.
She's
like naturally like very thin, slender, athletic. Like she like played tennis all through high school and did track and all this stuff. So I was like, I kind of want to keep up. Like I don't want to be holding her down or anything. But yeah, so shortly after we got married, I was like, okay, let's try this out. So I started running and immediately got plantar fasciitis, and like immediately my knees started hurting, and I was like, maybe I'll start biking because I already have a bike. Maybe I'll try doing this a little bit more actively. So one funny story that kind of got everything going as I wanted to get fit was I started working at a bike shop, Mad Dog Cycles in Orem, and I had a coworker who was like, I came to find that he was like legit, like could have been pro if he like had a competitive bone in his body. Like he can keep up with the best of them, like even now, and he's he's older, he's 40. I'm sorry if you're younger than that, McKay. But I'm pretty sure you turned 40. But
The world knows his age. All the secrets are coming out.
sorry, bro. Gosh, this is like tea time. Like, just all the truth coming out. But he was like, hey, you've got a road bike. Like, let's go on a ride. And I was like, sure, whatever. Like, just, a couple coworkers going on a ride. And he takes me up Squaw Peak. Mm-hmm. And for those unaware, Squaw Peak is about 1,800 vertical feet, a little over 4.5 miles. Mm-hmm. And I had no idea what I was getting into. So we get 3/4 of the way up, and I am huffing and puffing, and like, I just like being able to think about it and like looking at myself is probably hilarious. Like just watching how much I was exerting. Yeah. Like, anyway, so
just a little side note. One of my very first rides, maybe my second ride at this point, was the Alpine Loop.
Nice.
I didn't have bike shorts. I don't even know if I had like the right shoes or anything, but I can relate to you on that because I just think about that sometimes. I'm like, I bet that was so comical.
Yeah.
Because I think it probably took me 2 hours to get up.
Summit?
To get up.
Yeah.
I literally, I had just bought a bike, second ride. It's just, so funny.
Now it takes us 1 hour just by comparison.
Yeah.
So it's just, so funny to think about. Anyways, back to Squaw Peak.
And it's laughable, really. And what's really embarrassing in, my, just letting it all out, I was in such bad shape that McKay, he looks back at me. So he had actually, at a couple times, gone up to Summit and come back just because I forget what his time up Squaw is, probably 25 minutes, which is flipping fast for those curious. But he had come back to me and he was saw how bad a shape I was. So he puts his hand on my back and starts pushing me up. And I was just so full of A, gratitude, B, shame, C, embarrassment. I was just this is so pathetic. But I realized I realized where I wanted to be. I was like, okay, if he has this level of fitness that I do not have, that doesn't even seem possible to me right now. So I kind of went all in on trying to get fit and beat myself up on the bike and throwing a run in here and there. And I've gone back and forth on which one I prefer and which one I like doing more. In the winter, it's kind of nice to get out and run when I can't get out on the road bike because, you can ride a trainer for a little while, but then you want to die.
Yeah.
But
I actually really like the trainer, which is very strange.
Are you a Zwifter or Roovy?
I don't do Zwift or any of those. Just me and my little Wahoo.
All right. Yeah, you're a weirdo.
I know. I don't know what it is. I kind of like suffering in the dark in the corner of my house.
Okay, I can see that. There's that's a knuckle dragger mentality. It's just I'm just gonna sit in a dark room and suffer.
I don't know why, but I just I kind of love it.
The hard man, right? The Belgian.
Yeah. I don't want to do it every day, but a couple times a week, I'm I
get
look
it.
Forward to
yeah,
it.
no, I totally get that.
Usually I'm good for trainers, but this year I haven't gone.
Haven't touched
trainer.
it. Really?
I'm only motivated by fun this year, so I only do things for fun, or I've been lifting a lot.
But what if suffering on the trainer is fun?
Yeah, that's true. You get sadistic
I'm just kidding. It's not that fun.
I probably should just jump on and start doing it, and then I'll be oh yeah, this is fine.
Yeah, you can get into a rhythm for sure. And I actually I this is all turning very elitist cyclist now, but hey, it's us. So, but I really like Zwift and the pre-programmed workouts where you can just you know what, I have half an hour before my wife and daughter are up, so I'm gonna freaking sweat my brains out and just hurt.
Yeah.
And it's kind of nice to just go down in your basement and sweat a huge puddle on the floor and then take a shower and be okay, let's start my day.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just made this conscious decision of I am here, but I want to be over here. I was looking at McKay, my buddy, and I was just I want to be that quick. I want to be that fit. And I think a lot of that just comes from I have a very powerful internal drive. When I see something, I want something, I'm going to do what I can to get it.
Yeah.
I just never applied that to myself. I had never turned that inward and been well, don't you want to be the best you can be? I know that sounds super self-helpy, but but I'd looked at like, I want to get this degree, so I'll attack it with everything I can, or I want to do this job, so I'll try to make that happen. But I'd never been like, well, don't you want to feel better? So I'd finally turned that back on myself and decided I wanted to do that. So that culminated in a lot of things of just trying to do big giant rides and trying to make myself hurt and just see if I could even do it. I actually did I did the Alpine Loop on a 50-15 single speed.
Oh gosh.
um,
You should
but-
go ride with my husband.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Is he a single speed kook too?
He rides fixed.
Oh
so
yeah, I love fixed gear.
Even better.
Yeah, and that was another one. There was just stuff that I wanted to see if I could even do it. So my buddy and I did a fixed gear century around Utah Lake, and like my legs were fried and I hurt so bad. That was the first century I'd ever done. But I was like, I just did that. And
Who's your buddy?
Coleman.
Oh,
Coleman
Coleman Gibbs.
Yeah, so he and I rode fixed exclusively for like almost a whole season, and on that ride, like, and we were riding brakeless, which is stupid, especially like, okay, I don't really want to die, so maybe I'll throw a brake on there if I ever go fixed again, but like, I just remember our knees exploding on every descent, like when we'd have to skid to a stop, or like when we needed to slow down, or like
Smoke
swerve in it.
coming behind you.
Yeah.
Oh, the thought of riding a fixed gear is just terrifying to me.
Yeah, I rode a fixed gear. My husband loves fixed, so he's tried really hard to get me to ride fixed, and I wish I could be that for him. But one time I rode my fixed gear to campus, and I just remember this moment of, oh my gosh, I don't have brakes. And there was like a car on one side, or there was a car on one side, and then like a huge like semi on the other side. And I was like, I'm going through the middle of them. Like, I can't stop.
Thread the needle.
Yeah, and I was like, I really hope I make it.
Oh yeah,
Oh my
no,
God.
I've had a ton of those scenarios,
Yeah.
and like I've seen there's a whole like fixed gear community online, but there are some of these guys who are just like couriers and stuff. Just like, what is wrong with you? Like, you
Yeah.
have a death wish. Like watching them weave through New York traffic.
That's my husband.
So you mentioned that you're really passionate about recovery nutrition as well. So tell me, like, what kind of things you like to do for your recovery nutrition?
Yeah, so once I started making the switch to doing like bigger rides, longer rides, I realized through just the school of hard knocks that I had no idea what I was doing, like just constantly bonking and blowing up and having to like lay on the ground and feel like I'm going to puke.
So is this during the ride or after the ride, or kind of both?
It was like over like a longer period. So like this century was a perfect example of that. Like I had no idea what I was doing or eating. But so we'd like hop into gas stations and I'd get like some Pringles chips and like some just like junk candy, Oreos, just whatever. And I was like, because, and this I feel like is a mistake that a lot of people who are getting into endurance make, is they're like, okay, my body just needs fuel. Like, I'll just put whatever in and it'll be fine, because it's like, it's burning so hot. Like the furnace, I feel like people say this, but it's burning so hot it doesn't matter what you're throwing in, but it does. So through trial and error, I just realized, okay, there are certain things I need to take on the ride. But then, yeah, like you mentioned, I'm huge on recovery. So I'm avid on getting like 8 hours of sleep a night. But the biggest thing that I really feel like upped my game on recovery, was just getting the best food in first, right after. So I make a huge effort to do a big old green smoothie after like after every ride or run, whatever it is, and just trying to make sure like when my body's in that depleted state, because I'm not usually, at least in the mornings, I'm not usually doing like a huge effort. Like it's usually an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on what it is, or just 30 minutes if I sleep in. But I'm just making sure like, okay, I need berries, which are full of phytonutrients. I need greens, which are full of like everything you could ever ask for, magnesium, calcium. And I need like a variety of other fruits. So I just try to like smash it all in, get my nuts in, get flax and chia, and just like blend that into oblivion. And then it's crazy how quickly your body is like, oh man, that's exactly what I needed. So So hitting that first is like mandatory now. Just making sure I get a green smoothie. And I'm not typically throwing any sort of like protein powder in there. I have a couple, like I'm experimenting with Athletic Greens, which is like a plant-based kind of, it's not even really a protein powder. It's just like a full food spectrum complex nutrition thingy. Or like Garden of Life. They make some pretty cool plant-based proteins. But like I said, I'm not really lacking for any specific nutrient. It's more just like replenishing. So hitting a big green smoothie, usually doing a big thing of oatmeal because I try to get efforts in the morning, and then I'm trying to get breakfast. And just making sure that I've replenished any like micronutrients or phytonutrients, and then also making sure I've got energy for the rest of the day, which oatmeal's like the best. I know I keep bringing up oatmeal, but I love oatmeal. So I'll hit like a huge bowl of oatmeal. My wife says it looks super gross. Like it's nothing I do is like Instagram worthy or whatever.
Like what do you like to put in your oatmeal?
So I'll do like this morning, for example, I cut up a banana, and then I did goji berries, raisins, shredded coconut, flax and chia, and peanut butter. What else did I throw in there? Pumpkin pie spice. Kind of like mix it up. But then, I just slapped the oatmeal in there.
I need to learn how to make that kind of oatmeal.
Yeah.
My oatmeal does not.
Yeah, oatmeal can be a game changer. Like you can do, like my wife will do like a cocoa powder and peanut butter, kind of like a chocolate and peanut butter oatmeal. Sometimes we'll do like a berry mix. You can do another one we really like is kind of just to like put a middle finger up to all the what do they call them? Acai bowls, which are like $20 for a stupid little thing of like some fruit and like smoothie poured on. So we'll do like if you just blend some berries and almond milk in the blender, it turns into an acai bowl pretty quick.
Yeah, it looks just like it.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And you're getting most of the same benefits, like no harm to acai. Like it's a great fruit, but I just think it's so dumb when people are like, oh, I got my acai bowl. It's like, how much did that cost?
Yeah.
It's just crazy because you can make it at home.
Like you could buy an entire bag of berries.
Yes.
And then some.
Yeah, like I'm trying to think, because Winco frozen berries, you're probably like $3 a bag. So yeah, you could buy a lot.
Yeah.
But it's all opportunity cost. So yeah, I'll try to hit all the big categories, and usually what I'm using is like I'm not going through and like hammering out specific checks these days, but there's an app called the Daily Dozen checklist, and I promise I'm not paid by
it's
Michael
okay
Greger
or
I'm not. I wish I was, but I'm not. But Michael Greger, who wrote How Not to Die, so he does the Daily Dozen app. So if you guys haven't seen it, like these are the servings that you're supposed to knock out every day. So 3 servings of beans, some berries, 3 of other fruits, cruciferous veggies, greens, other veggies, flax, other nuts and seeds, herbs, whole grains. Like basically, I mean, you
is
can
this to
take
kind
a look.
of just make a very well-rounded kind of
exactly
sufficient diet?
Yeah, so the idea behind this is this will cover every nutrient you would need in a given day.
And does the app cost money?
Totally free. So it's totally free, and not only, it actually does one better than just showing you what you should eat.
Yeah.
Because you can go into each category and look at the things that are in that category. So like,
do you do this every day, or is it just kind of like a mental checklist?
I did at first. It was really helpful to go in for 2 reasons. One, you kind of get a visual of like where you're lacking. So for me at first it was beans. Like I had a really hard time like, okay, how often can you really, I was like, baked beans,
dude,
refried beans.
Beans are my
beans are your jam.
I love beans. I think I had like 6 servings of beans today.
Nice, good on you. And now I do too, but I didn't realize consciously that I had this gap, you know? So it was nice to go in and see like, okay, like I didn't get any cruciferous vegetables today, and like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts are
Asparagus.
all, yeah. I
Asparagus
don't
count?
know if asparagus is cruciferous.
I don't think it is.
But anyway, it just, so there's the visual of like, okay, where am I missing anything? But then there's also the double whammy of like, oh, this is what I can eat, or this is what I choose to eat rather.
Gives you lots of ideas.
Yeah, tons of options. Because like
what you can eat versus focusing on what you can't, basically.
exactly, yeah. So opting into like, because there, I mean, if I had to spitball, there's probably like 200 food recommendations in like just in that app.
Yeah.
And like if someone ate all of that in a month, I would be shocked because that's a lot of different options.
Mm-hmm. It's such a like genetic, like if you like the genetic variety too of foods.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know that much about that, but I've heard like getting more
Mm-hmm.
genetically different foods can also really benefit.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that much about that. But.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of the idea. Like, a lot of people, everyone's all in on like superfoods, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
everyone's like acai, for example, or like goji berries, which are great. But really, it's one of those instances where quantity trumps quality almost every time. Like and a lot of this comes back to the microbiome. Like if you're getting diversity, that's going to be a lot better than just like, oh, I eat goji berries every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, that's great. Like you're getting benefits from that. But if you were throwing in like cranberries and strawberries and just like normal berries, you're better off because you're casting a wider net.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like I guess that's the third thing is like it's kind of forcing you into new and different options.
Mm-hmm. So I saw on there's like a supplement, vitamin B12.
Mm-hmm.
Because vitamin B12 is something that's kind of in like the gut of ruminous animals, right?
In natural settings, yes. So this is another kind of like misconception. So we live in such a like antiseptic world, disinfected world, that the animals which you are eating, that omnivores are eating, have actually been supplemented B12. So if you go into any farm store, you will see huge vats of cow, chicken, and pig B12. And the reason is these animals aren't being fed their normal diet, which is basically raw veggies and grasses and things that are on the dirt. So B12, cyanocobalamin and methylcobalamin, that just skipped my mind, but those are actually produced by basically bacteria. So if you are eating like straight out of the ground, like if you rip a radish out of the dirt and eat the radish dirt and all, you're going to have your B12 covered. I don't recommend that.
Yeah.
And most people probably
That's
shouldn't.
actually really interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's just another one of those like lies that we are
Things
sold.
you've been fed.
Yeah.
Well, because also is it what yeast? What's it called? Nutritional yeast.
Nutritional yeast.
Is
Yep.
it just like
Yeah. So it does
vitamin
does
B12.
have naturally occurring, but they also
supplement?
what's the word? Enrich it with
Okay.
B12. So most enriched foods also contain B12. It's basically just covering your bases. So people kind of, again, it's one of those things like people narrow in on and obsess about. It's like, well, what
It's
about
not
your
that
B12? And like it is important, but it's not like there's a lot of misconceptions about it because you can, I mean, I'm trying to think, we get that at Winco too, or B12 supplement, and it's like, I think $8 and lasts all three of us like a month.
So do you take a supplement?
I do. So
Okay.
I do, and the reason is I'm mostly avoiding like enriched processed grains, which is normally like if you bite into Wonder Bread, it's enriched. You've probably got B12 in there, but it's not like making up for how crappy it is for you. So when you're focusing on like whole plant foods and you're not eating the dirt that those plants came in, then yeah, it's a really good idea to supplement.
Yeah.
But yeah, if someone was just like going to the grocery store and buying like pasta's another great example. Most pastas are enriched. You're gonna get B12 in that.
Yeah.
So I would like as a blanket statement say like it's a good option and I'd probably recommend it, but it's not the end all be all, and it's definitely not something that omnivores should brag about, because the animals that they're eating also had to have it supplemented, so they're not eating naturally. Like, it's not, a lot of people are like, well, this is how my ancestors ate, and it's like, not really. I don't know.
I think your ancestors ate from a mass.
Yeah, from a slaughterhouse and factory farm, and bought their meat cuts in convenient little refrigerated packages. But
it is really interesting when people. Anyways.
Yeah.
Are there any other misconceptions that you feel like people have?
I feel like the big one that I've like taken upon myself as well to like rail against is just the idea, and this is like what the documentary Game Changers was all about, but just that an athlete couldn't possibly, and someone who like is a performance oriented individual like couldn't possibly, or and that to an extent, like I'm actively working to disprove that. And let's see, in 2020 I did a 50-mile trail run, finished 20th in my age group, which I was like pleasantly and shockingly surprised.
Which one did you do?
Squat Peak 50.
Oh, nice. That's a hard race.
Yeah, it was. You're not kidding. It was rough. And actually, I went an hour off course too, so that was.
Oh my gosh.
That sucked so bad.
That is painful.
That was the most, like, that was the lowest low. I have not been that demoralized in many moons, because I started like desperately yelling. I was like, is anyone up there? Like, and I wasn't seeing any flags, and what tipped me off, and I'm sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent, but I was so dead. I was like looking at the ground because I couldn't even lift my head. There were no footprints, and I was like, I've seen like a lot of footprints this entire race, and I'm pretty sure I didn't pass every single person. So, so that was a bummer. But yeah, I did Squat Peak 50 miler, and I put in about 500 miles prior to the race, earlier in 2020, and I did an Everesting on Squat Peak Mountain Road, which was like coming full circle and then not even being able to make it up by myself.
Yeah. Did you bike that or run it?
Biked. Nice. So I'm tantalized by a running Everest, but man, after doing it on a bike, that was like, that was intense.
How many? Did you do it the same day as Aaron Cowboy? By chance?
Funny story. And I would hope, he would own it because I have the text messages, but I actually told him that I wanted to do an Everesting because I had asked 3 friends, and he was the only one that was willing to do it with me. So
so you inspired him.
I did. Yes, yes, I did.
That's awesome.
Because he hadn't actually, correct me if I'm wrong, James, I don't know if you're going to listen to this, but I don't think he'd actually heard of it. I think I had to send him like the website or a video or something, and he was like, that sounds insane, let's do it. And I was like, sweet.
So you did it the same day as him?
So I didn't, actually. It was kind of, it was weird serendipitous event. So we had picked a date, and then he had told me that, like, I forget if it was like a speaking gig or something that came up, but he and Aaron and Casey, who are his buddies and guys I've ridden with too, but they ended up doing it about 2 weeks prior to the original date that we had planned. And I think it was also, the original weekend that we planned ended up being a triple-digit week, like temps. So it was bloody hot out. I think that was the other thing, that he was kind of like, I don't know if I want to do it when it's super hot. Yeah. And, no harm, no foul. Like, I totally get it. So he ended up doing it a couple weeks before, and I think his finish time was like 23:40 or something like that, like 23 hours 40 minutes. I'd have to look at the website again, but I tried it so I did my first attempt on the day that we had originally planned. So it was 100 degrees out.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I got 8 or 9 laps in, so a little over halfway, or right about halfway. And I was cooked. I was like, I can't do this. Like, my neck was getting sunburned, and in spite of like slamming sunscreen on there, but so I was toasted. So I called my wife. I was like, can you come pick me up? And she was like, yep.
Were you by yourself?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, I pretty much did it as ghetto as you could. So like, James had car at the top, car at the bottom. He had Aaron and Casey. He had 2 or 3 other guys come throughout the day. And he did it smart. So I had a lawn chair and a cooler at the bottom.
Nice.
And that was my aid station.
Yeah.
So, so second go was in September. So the first one was in July, or July or August. I'd have to go back and check. But then come September, I was like, you know what? I'm freaking doing this. So same setup, cooler and a lawn chair that got stolen on the 3rd lap. So didn't have anywhere to sit. That was a mega
just
bummer.
the lawn chair. Okay, I was like,
Yeah.
the cooler.
The cooler. Oh man, yeah.
Bad.
I would have been like, you've got to be kidding me. And I had a little paper on it that was like, aid station 4 event, please do not touch. I had that on the chair too.
Stole it.
Yeah, they still stole the chair. That was crappy. But the second go around, I did it, and it was absolutely brutal, and my legs and nether regions have only just recovered. No, I'm just kidding. But it was absolutely rough, but I did it totally plant-powered, and kind of another, like, coming full circle, McKay, my buddy, ended up doing the last 5 or 6 laps with me. And he... Yeah, just total animal, like, just totally knocked it out with me. Like, five laps on squat for him was, like, nothing.
Yeah.
18 laps, on the other hand, was rough.
Yeah.
So that was crazy. And for that, since we're talking nutrition and endurance nutrition, in the cooler, I had 1 gallon jug full of green tea. I had 1 gallon jug full of Datorade mixed with dates. So I did a full gallon of, it was water, probably like a cup and a half or 2 cups of dates, and then like 2 beets, and just blended that sucker up. So I had that, and then a gallon of water, and then I did like 3 or 4 avocado sandwiches. I did these guys, so I did power balls and muffins, and I also did sauerkraut and olives for kind of, salts. And yeah, just powered through it. That was a really long day, but I finished. This is like not like a real sanctioned anything, but I have the record now for Everesting on squaw. It was just over 22 hours or just under, but
nice.
But yeah, so that was epic.
That's awesome.
That is a long day on the bike.
That is a long day on Squaw Peak.
Yeah. Yeah, that was intense. It ended up being like 128 miles, and I ended up riding like just under 30,000. So the actual Everest height is 29. But yeah, it was like 29 and 29.5 or something like that. So
nice.
Yeah.
That's rad. Everesting is one of those things that scares me still.
It's pretty scary. Like, it's not like in some ways it's just interesting because it's so stupid simple that you're like cognitively in your head, you're like, yeah, 18 times up Squaw Peak. Like, I usually do that within, like in the middle of the season. Like, if I'm actively training, like that's probably, 2-3 weeks worth of Squaw Peak, because sometimes I do double days. And but yeah, when you just do it back to back, it's like, it's just so relentless and just so monotonous. It's like, it's probably more a head game than it really is like your legs cooperating.
I could see that.
So we should probably wrap up.
I know,
but
we've been chatting.
Yeah, we've been going crazy.
But you'll have to send us. We'll put all of your links. We'll get your recipes and put it in our notes for the episode.
Yeah.
Your recipes, the app. You'll have to send us the books.
I didn't even ask if you've read the China study.
Yes, yeah.
That's another kind of really popular book right now.
Yeah,
I feel like.
that one was a really good option. I mean, I could send you a buttload of books that are just great and all about, plant-based eating and stuff. But I think there's going to be like a renaissance of, starting with Game Changers, the documentary of like plant-based performance. Like, I feel like I feel like that's the next game because, and one thing, sorry, I'm going to keep talking, but,
It's fine.
But that was one that I hadn't mentioned that was really pivotal for me as well. But Scott Jurick's book, Eat and Run, that to me, I was just like, holy cow, this is, because he's like OG. Like, this is like plant-based ultra runner in the 90s. Like, just before it was cool, before anything. And he was like, I think he still, I'd have to double check this, but I think he still has the most Western States 100 wins of anyone. But he's just like, yeah, and he had the Appalachian Trail record as of, well, it's been taken now, but in 2017,
There's a lot of vegan or plant-based athletes like Killian. I don't know if you know Killian.
Killian Jornet?
Yep. Killian is
vegan?
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, shoot, that's crazy.
Him and his wife are. And then I don't know if you know Lucy Bartholomew. She also is. They're all, I mean, she's an ultra runner.
Oh, that's cool.
And I can just think of them off the top of my head. But like those are people that I really admire and look up to, and they're incredible athletes and they're plant-based.
Yeah, like top tier performance, and that, I mean, that was the whole idea of like the documentary, like the game changers, of like these are people literally at the top of their game. So it's just like what's crazy to me and what's really exciting and probably a really good note to end on is just like, okay, what comes next? Like what happens when we have this next generation of athletes that starts out like in the best possible place? Because I just think of like
your daughter.
I think of my daughter. Like she's 2 years old. She's never had an animal product, and she's like as happy and healthy as could be, and gets all sorts of regards on all of her like growth charts and all this stuff, and all of her like annual checkups and stuff. And I'm just like, holy cow, like if you never have all of this crap holding you down, like what the heck are you going to be able to do, like 10, 15, 20 years from now? And I just think I'm really excited for that, because I think it's just going to be a whole new level.
Yeah. I think it'll be really interesting to see, especially with research, as more research comes out. So it'll be fun to see. Yeah,
it's going to be cool. And I think a platform like this is awesome for being at the forefront. You know?
Yeah, and also just to end it with, you want to tell people about your podcast as well? Oh yeah, absolutely. I didn't even see what happens when we get chatting. Like it's just so fun. But that was another thing that all of this has kind of culminated in, but the passion project of mine, which is embodied itself in a YouTube channel and a podcast and an upcoming book. It's kind of, it's pretty cool. I'll have to come back when the book comes out. That'll be a good motivator, because I've been like writer's block for a while. But Effectually Active. The Effectually Active podcast is the podcast, and then on YouTube we're the Effectually Active project. So we're just basically, I say we, it's me right now, and my guests. But we're just talking about stuff that is like everyday things that can make a difference for the individual, but also have like this positive outward effect, is kind of like the elevator pitch. Because I think it's important to focus on yourself, but also be making decisions that have downstream effects that are positive for the world and for your community and for your family and all this stuff. And I think plant-based eating just fits so perfectly into that, because take someone like my mom, who was never never unhealthy. She was never obese. She, has some like disease history in her family and all this stuff. But like, she has told, like, she's lost weight and she feels like she has so much more energy, and she has 5 going on 6 grandkids now. And she's just told me like numerous times of how she's just like, I'm excited to spend time and like have energy and feel like I can still be a part of the family with like this next generation, like my grandkids. And she attributes a lot of that to like her health and wellness and vitality, and eating whole food plant-based has helped her with that. And I'm just like, that's so cool, because it's helping her, and you could look at it and say like, oh, it's all selfish and stuff, but no, she's going to be with us that much longer, and she's going to be that much more a part of our lives. Yeah, anytime you take care of yourself, you're benefiting the people around you. It's like in order to bless other people's lives, you have to be good yourself. 100%. I think also as culturally, as I think America has an interesting culture surrounding, like we've talked about, animal products and just overall unhealthy lifestyles. I feel like as culturally it becomes more accepted and more kind of mainstream,
I think it will become easier for people to accept and adopt. And I don't know. I think we're on that way. I don't know if that's just because in my life I see it a lot, and so I'm like, oh, everybody's experiencing this. But I think there's a cultural shift, and I hope that it becomes more kind of accepted.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just gonna I think the snowball's just gonna keep rolling over and picking up more, because I think at some point you can't stop the floodgates, right? Like as much as the government or the corporate world or whey protein powder and keto companies want to sell you like all this junk, that eventually there's just like the floodgates are going to come open. Like the fact that we can live healthier, longer lives on like the simplest, most basic food groups is just, it's going to be a no-brainer eventually. So I'm excited.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for joining us.
100%, guys. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.